There was a time when sirens and flashing lights weren't just TV drama. They were a lifeline, a glimpse into the heroes behind the uniform. For millions of viewers, Emergency wasn't just a show. It was a weekly reminder of courage, compassion, and lives saved against the clock. From the brave paramedics at Station 51 to the calm hands of doctors at Rampart General, these characters left an unforgettable mark on our hearts. But behind the uniforms were real people, actors who brought heart and soul to every call, every rescue, every moment. In this tribute, we honor the beloved cast members of Emergency who are no longer with us. We'll remember their stories, their struggles, and the legacies they left behind, on screen and beyond. So stay with us, subscribe to the channel, and let's look back at the heroes who made Emergency unforgettable. Bobby Troup, born October 18, 1918, in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, joined Emergency in 1972 at the age of 54, playing Dr. Joe Early. Dr. Joe Early is the calm and composed neurologist whose steady presence helped guide Rampart Hospital through countless emergencies. Bobby's dedication and composure during tense medical situations made him much loved by viewers. But behind the quiet confidence of his character was a man navigating fading fame, private disappointments, and a career in slow decline. In the 1940s and 50s, Bobby had been a successful jazz musician. His song Route 66 became an American classic, and other works like Daddy brought him acclaim. But by the time he entered the world of television, his music career was already slipping away. Roles in films like The Gene Krupa Story, 1959, and MASH, 1970, offered brief returns to the spotlight, but never brought the lasting recognition he hoped for. His personal life was no less complicated. Married to Julie London, who played Dixie McCall on Emergency, Bobby found himself overshadowed by her rising television fame. Though they supported each other publicly, their private life was marked by quiet comparisons and unequal opportunities. He had helped Julie relaunch her singing career, but as she became a household name, Bobby struggled to find his own place in a changing industry. Years of disappointment, unspoken pressures, and unreciprocated efforts wore on him. As time passed, he quietly set aside his own needs to support Julie, especially after her health began to fail. In the final years of his life, Bobby was suffering from a heart condition, all while caring for Julie after her stroke in 1995. The emotional and physical toll weighed heavily. On February 7, 1999, he died of a heart attack at his home in Sherman Oaks, California, at the age of 80. He left behind an estate valued around $1.5 million, mostly from royalties and property. Bobby was cremated and laid to rest beside Julie at Forest Lawn, Hollywood Hills. Julie London. Julie London, born September 26, 1926, in Santa Rosa, California, portrayed Nurse Dixie McCall on Emergency in 1972 at the age of 46. Dixie McCall is the steady and compassionate head nurse at Rampart Hospital's emergency room. Her calm authority and nurturing presence made her one of the show's most beloved characters, a rare figure of grace and strength in high-pressure moments. But away from the screen, Julie's life was filled with personal struggles, quiet heartbreak, and the heavy burden of reinvention. In her early years, Julie found success as both a singer and actress, rising to fame with the 1955 hit, Cry Me a River. But behind her sultry image was a woman who constantly had to fight to stay relevant. Her first marriage to Jack Webb, creator of Emergency, ended in 1954 amid growing distance and personal strain. Years later, he would cast her in the very show that gave her a second wave of fame, a strange, full-circle moment that reopened old emotional wounds. Her marriage to Bobby Troup, though lasting, was marked by constant comparisons. While she rose to TV fame, Bobby's career quietly declined. The tension of their differing trajectories, combined with the harsh realities of Hollywood's treatment of aging women, made life behind the scenes difficult. Julie became so closely identified with Dixie McCall that future acting roles became nearly impossible to find. In 1996, just one day after her 70th birthday, Julie's daughter Stacy died in a tragic car accident. The loss shattered her. By then, Julie's health had already begun to fail. A lifelong smoker, she suffered a debilitating stroke in 1995 that left her unable to speak. In 1999, she was diagnosed with lung cancer, but her body was too weak to undergo treatment. On October 18, 2000, she passed away quietly in Encino, California, from cardiac arrest at the age of 74. She was cremated and laid to rest beside Bobby Troup at Forest Lawn, Hollywood Hills. Her estate, worth an estimated $2 million, was built largely from music royalties and long-held property in Encino. Tim Donnelly. Tim Donnelly, born September 3, 1944, in Los Angeles, California, portrayed fireman Chet Kelly on the 1970s television series Emergency when he was 28 years old. Chet Kelly is the fun-loving and often humorous member of the Los Angeles County Fire Department Station 51 crew, frequently providing comic relief alongside his fellow firefighters. Chet's playful energy made him one of the show's most relatable and beloved characters. Tim Donnelly was raised in the entertainment world. His father, a Universal Studios executive, and his brother, a director. Tim had early access to Hollywood. Yet even with connections, building a meaningful career proved difficult. After Emergency ended, he found himself typecast, and major opportunities dried up. Roles in films like The Toolbox Murders, 1978, and Parts, The Clonus Horror, 1979, offered brief hope, but he never fully escaped the long shadow of Chet Kelly. As the career doors closed, depression crept in. Alcohol became a quiet companion, slowly worsening his health and deepening his isolation. His marriage to Michelle McKay gave him a short period of stability, and their daughter Ashley became a bright spot in his life. But the pressures of failure and addiction eventually tore the family apart. Tim withdrew from the spotlight and spent his later years in a modest home, far from the energy of Hollywood. The joy he once brought to millions stood in contrast to the pain he endured behind closed doors. In the end, he lived simply, away from fame, clinging to whatever peace he could find. On September 17, 2021, Tim Donnelly died in Santa Fe, New Mexico, due to complications following surgery. He was 77 years old. His net worth at the time was estimated at around $800,000, largely from his Los Angeles property and royalties from Emergency. He was cremated, and his ashes were privately scattered. Michael Norell. Michael Norell, born October 4, 1937 in Wallace, Idaho, joined Emergency in 1972 at the age of 34, playing Captain Henry Hank Stanley, the calm, steady leader of Station 51. His composed authority and gentle humor made him a trusted figure both in the firehouse and in viewers' hearts. Early in his life, Michael followed in his father's footsteps by joining the Army, later shifting into journalism before chasing a career in acting. Emergency gave him a solid break, but as the years passed, he found himself trapped in the image of the ideal commanding officer, a typecast role he couldn't seem to outgrow. He tried to reinvent himself through writing, even earning industry recognition as a screenwriter. But despite moments of creative success, his acting career never returned to the spotlight. The slow fade of fame brought years of quiet disappointment, marked by deep reflection on what might have been. His personal life carried its own sorrows. Michael's first marriage to Elizabeth Ingelson lasted nearly 2 decades before her passing in 1983, a loss that left a lasting hole in his life. Though he eventually remarried and became a father, the pressures of creative work and a constant desire to prove himself created distance he never quite bridged. Writing became his retreat, a place where he poured his thoughts and pain, but it couldn't fully fill the void left by lost recognition and the weight of personal regret. Sadly, on May 12, 2023, Michael Norell passed away in Huntington, West Virginia, at the age of 85, following complications from a medical emergency. He spent his final years away from the public eye, in quiet reflection. Gary Crosby. Gary Crosby, born June 27, 1933 in Los Angeles, California, portrayed Officer Tom Wheeler in Emergency when he was 39 years old. His character brought a steady, streetwise law enforcement presence to the high-pressure world of emergency response. But behind the uniform was a man quietly battling the heavy weight of his past and the emotional wounds left by a troubled upbringing. As the eldest son of legendary crooner Bing Crosby and actress Dixie Lee, Gary grew up in a household that looked glamorous from the outside, but felt cold and bruising on the inside. In his 1983 memoir, Going My Own Way, he revealed the deep psychological scars of his childhood. Watching his mother sink into alcoholism and enduring harsh discipline and beatings from the father the world admired. The Crosby name opened doors, but it also chained him to a legacy he never felt proud of. Gary attempted to step out of that shadow, first through music with the Crosby Boys, and then in acting, but nothing ever fully healed the pain. His career was marked by unfulfilled potential, and the trauma he carried led to a long battle with alcoholism that quietly affected his reputation and relationships. His brief success on Emergency brought some dignity back to his public image, but his private life remained a quiet storm. He married several times searching for stability and peace, but his inner turmoil often surfaced. The burden of trying to prove himself as more than Bing Crosby's son weighed heavily, and many of his closest bonds grew distant. On August 24, 1995, Gary Crosby died from lung cancer in Burbank, California, at the age of 62. He was laid to rest at Forest Lawn Memorial Park, Hollywood Hills, Los Angeles, California. William Bryant. William Bryant, born January 31, 1924, in Detroit, Michigan, joined Emergency in 1972 at the age of 48, portraying the captain of Engine 16. His character projected calm authority, offering a steadying presence during the chaos of emergencies. Before Emergency, William Bryant had gained early attention with roles in King Dinosaur, 1955, and Hondo, 1967, which promised a promising future. Yet despite his talent, Bryant's climb was constantly interrupted by behind-the-scenes tension. A bitter fallout with a producer during Emergency led to an unspoken blacklist, stalling his momentum and quietly pushing him out of the industry he had worked so hard to break into. His personal life mirrored the same hidden strain. His marriage to Patricia began with warmth and hope, but over time, it began to unravel under emotional distance, growing frustration and unresolved personal battles. Friends noticed his temperament change, the result of years of depression, career disappointments, and the isolation of a man who felt forgotten in a business that once embraced him. Bryant later tried to reignite his career with a role in Battlestar Galactica, 1978, but it was not enough to shift the narrative. Poor investment decisions and dwindling opportunities forced him into a quieter life, far from the limelight, in a modest Los Angeles home. Though he had once played men of strength, he died largely alone. The industry and relationships he once held dear reduced to distant memories. On June 26, 2001, William Bryant passed away in Woodland Hills, Los Angeles, at 77 years old after a battle with cancer. He was cremated and his ashes given to his family members. His net worth at the time was about $500,000, mainly from the value of his home and some residual royalties from his earlier TV work. Annetta Corsaw, born November 3, 1933 in Hutchinson, Kansas, appeared in Emergency as Chuck's wife, a small but steady role that reflected the everyday strength of the women behind first responders. Though her screen time was brief, her presence brought a quiet humanity to the show's otherwise high-intensity drama. Off-screen, however, Annetta's life was a complex mix of quiet ambition, personal loss, and emotional solitude. Early in her career, she gained recognition for her role on The Andy Griffith Show, but the attention came with complications. Rumored to have had a long, private relationship with Griffith himself, Annetta was often caught between public admiration and a very private reality that never quite gave her the personal fulfillment she longed for. Her career plateaued in the years that followed. While she continued to work in television, the meaningful roles became fewer. She never married, and despite a warm, outward persona, she carried a loneliness that deepened with time. Friends described her as gracious but guarded, someone who gave a lot on set but remained emotionally distant when the cameras were off. In her final years, Annetta battled cancer quietly. She kept her diagnosis private, choosing to face the illness away from the public eye, much like how she handled most of her life. Strong, silent, and with grace. Annetta Corsaw passed away on November 6, 1995, just 3 days after her 62nd birthday in Studio City, California. She was buried at Valhalla Memorial Park in North Hollywood. Hal Baylor. Hal Baylor, born December 10, 1918 in San Antonio, Texas, appeared in Emergency from 1972 at the age of 54. He took on the role of the animal trainer and foreman, a no-nonsense character that closely reflected the tough exterior he carried throughout his real life. Before the cameras, Hal lived many lives. A former boxer with a rough record and reputation, he stepped into the entertainment world after serving in World War II. His breakout came in The Setup, 1949. But it wasn't long before his fiery temper, once useful in the ring, began to push people away in Hollywood. Known for clashes on set and an unwillingness to compromise, Hal's behavior cost him roles and strained many professional relationships. His personal life was equally complex. He married 3 times, but none of his marriages brought lasting peace. Custody battles, distance from his children, and financial disputes haunted much of his adult life. Even his later years were marked by regret. Promising film roles became fewer as the industry moved on without him, tired of the storms he carried with him. Though he once stood tall in war films and crime dramas, Hal Baylor spent his final years living quietly and alone in Los Angeles. He passed away on January 15, 1998, at the age of 79, after battling age-related health issues. At the time of his death, his net worth was modest, a reminder of a life filled with both promise and personal turmoil. Ross Elliott. Ross Elliott, born June 18, 1917, in the Bronx, New York, appeared in Emergency in 1973 as a foreman when he was 56 years old. He played a calm, dependable figure amid chaos, reflecting the professionalism he often brought to screen throughout his long career. Over 4 decades, Elliott became a familiar face to American audiences, appearing in over 200 television shows and numerous films. Yet behind the steady stream of work was a life increasingly shaped by personal struggles. During his prime, roles in classics like I Love Lucy and The Texan earned him respect, but his career would later lose momentum. A highly publicized affair damaged both his marriage and his reputation. The fallout led to lost opportunities and a quiet exit from the major roles he once secured with ease. As work slowed, Elliott turned to alcohol, a coping mechanism that eventually grew into a source of further isolation and professional decline. Despite occasional roles in shows like The $6 Million Man and Little House on the Prairie, he never regained his earlier success. His later years were spent mostly out of the public eye, living modestly in Los Angeles. Ross Elliott passed away from cancer on August 12, 1999, at the age of 82. He was cremated and ashes given to his family. At the time of his death, his net worth was estimated at around $500,000, largely from the value of his home. Thanks for watching. We hope you enjoyed revisiting the cast of Emergency and their unforgettable journey through one of TV's most iconic rescue dramas. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your favorite moments from the series in the comments. See you in the next video. Stay safe out there.